The following presentation is part of the Beyond the Blast Doors network. You're listening to Around the Galaxy.
This is Pete Fletzer. On this episode of Around the Galaxy, we're talking to the curator of the Anakin and His Angel website, Jenmarie. Join us as we talk about 19 years of Star Wars blogging, Galaxy's Edge, and bringing Ahsoka to life. So strap yourselves in, relax, and enjoy this journey around the galaxy.
D&D player, board game partner.
We're having roast
Why we're here.
nice one.
Good. Yeah.
I'm in New Orleans, where kind of right now, hey, you know, it's not
Jenmarie, thank you so much for joining me today. How are you doing?
Great. How are you?
I can't complain. So, I've been following you on Twitter since I've been back into Twitter about 2 years ago, but and have read your blog, but not maybe tell my listeners who you are and what your Star Wars connection is.
Yeah, so I am a Star Wars blogger. I have been writing and creating Star Wars content for almost 20 years now. And my blog is called anakinandhisangel.com, but it's really just a hub for all general Star Wars things. So if you go there, you'll see a little bit of fashion, you'll see a little bit of collecting, some think pieces, and maybe some unboxing videos. And I just really enjoy reporting on all the latest Star Wars news, and again, creating my own Star Wars content, whether that be styling Star Wars bounds or creating stickers or anything like that. And I really just love how I'm able to just share my love of Star Wars with fans across the galaxy. Really, yeah. It's just really fun, and I try to just be as positive and kind as possible. And I think we especially need that during these times.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. It's I was going to ask you that you've been doing this for 19 years. So just a real short version of my story. When I hear you talk about doing this for 19 years, I had one of the very first Star Wars websites back in the mid 90s. And I think it was like on GeoCities or something like that.
Oh yeah.
And then I stopped. But in 20, that in the 19 to 20 years that you've been doing this, what have you seen change? What have you seen, sort of the internet state of Star Wars evolve?
So one of the main things is social media, because back when I started my blog in the year 2000, I didn't have that, and the way that I communicated with fans was through email or sometimes comments and forums. And I feel like, especially with forums, because you had moderators, a lot of the conversations were moderated, and they didn't get out of hand like they tend to do on places like Twitter.
Yeah. So it's funny. I'm gonna bring up real quick. This was the tweet that you posted that inspired me to reach out to you, because I love this perspective. You say here that twice I've experienced someone thinking they had the authority to approve my opinion on a Star Wars topic based on if I'd grown up with the original trilogy or not. Please don't judge fans this way. It's really interesting because I have two young kids. Some of my friends through the network grew up in the sequel trilogy, in the prequel trilogy. Your blog started in the heart of the prequel trilogy. Where did that come from? What kind of situation have you seen, and how do you respond to that kind of thing?
Yeah, one of the times was in person, believe it or not, and I was just kind of like shocked. Like, I didn't know how to react, and I don't even remember what I said, to be honest, but online I've encountered that, and it's just I don't even know what to say, because there are no rules,
right?
And I don't need somebody to approve my opinion,
right?
Based on how I came into this fandom. Like, if I say I'm a fan, then I'm a fan.
It's really a challenge I think that I see that kind of makes me a little bit crazy is people like to use the phrase gatekeeping and things like that, but
Yeah.
There's really no correct way to come into the fandom. There's no right or wrong doorway. I've said it on my show a lot lately. Love your perspective. I think one of the things that Disney has done really, really well, and I see that you're a big fan of Galaxy's Edge. We'll probably talk about that in a minute or two. But what's really interesting is Disney has done a really great job of giving people different doorways to come into the Star Wars series. My daughter came in through the sequels. She saw pictures of Rey. She made her own Rey costume. And so, that's her Star Wars. My son is a Clone Wars kid, and he's younger than he's only 8 years old, but when Clone Wars hit Netflix and then Disney, that's his Star Wars. And my Star Wars is I saw it in 1977 in the theater with my father. So it doesn't really matter. How did you discover Star Wars? How did you get into it?
So I became a Star Wars fan through the old trilogy. My mom and dad had A New Hope on in the family room, and I walked in on the scene where Obi-Wan hands Luke Skywalker his father's lightsaber. Oh, wow. And I was just mesmerized. I was like, what is this? And I saw it for the first time all the way through in 1997 during its re-release, and I was instantly a fan. So it's funny when people say that, because it was the old trilogy that I became a fan. But again, like you said, it doesn't matter. I mean, I know people who became a fan through The Mandalorian even. Yeah. Which that's just so cool, and it gives you new perspectives when you get to talk to them.
I think that's why it's really hard to even I can't even imagine taking that perspective, but people do clearly, and as you mentioned, social media is sometimes a breeding ground for some of the worst type of conversations, I guess. I'm being polite. But it's because you're right. Like, you can come into Star Wars in any of those avenues. And what's great, as somebody who's been a fan for 43 years, like I have, is to watch the fact that they've curated this story so carefully and so well that you can start in The Mandalorian, you can start in the sequel trilogy, you can start at any point and really get a lot out of the story.
Yeah, I love that about it.
Yeah. So you came in through that, but what was it about that? It must have been the prequel era that inspired you to just start writing about it. Do you have a writing or creative background? What's your
I don't. I remember, because I was homeschooled K through 12th grade, and I don't remember what grade I was in, but my mom had given me an HTML workbook. And so I taught myself how to build websites, and I had websites before Anakin and his Angel. And after I saw The Phantom Menace, I was just really captivated by Anakin and Padme's love story, and very excited for the new Star Wars movies to come. And I just wanted to create a place for my love of Star Wars. So, and I feel like when I saw the prequel trilogy, or that movie in particular, my love for Star Wars just doubled.
Yeah. That's great. So has it always been sort of a mix of just sort of which, where your mind is at in Star Wars, and it really has evolved. It's, for anybody who hasn't been there, I totally recommend you go check out AnakinandHisAngel.com, because it's if you're into collecting, if you're into points of view. You just had a really interesting theory, maybe share with us on Anakin's potential role in the Kenobi series, because we're hearing these rumors that these things are happening. So what has it always been? Just sort of whatever's on your mind, or change?
For a while now. When it first started, it was more of a website similar to that of like theforce.net or jedinews.co.uk. It was I had a whole staff. Really? And so we all kind of reported on different aspects. Yeah. So we did have like fan art contests and like creative bits, but it was like Star Wars news website. And I would say it changed more into of a personal blog when what year was it? 2015 probably. So now it's just like whatever I feel like. And I try, it's just like whatever. I try to do a little bit of everything, but everything is genuine. I don't just like, oh, I'm just going to do this over here. And everything that I put on there are things that I'm truly passionate about.
And you seem really passionate about, and you find these things, and I find when I look at your site, I'm like, I gotta get that for my daughter or something like that. You have a lot of really, you uncover like great sort of Star Wars fashion and like off the beat. Yes, you look like you're into pops like I am,
yes.
and that sort of thing. But you find these really unique things. How do you find them? And is that like, that's what you collect, I suppose, right?
I do. Yeah. I have like a Funko Pop radar, I guess you can say. It's really cool just to constantly look around and search for the latest Star Wars merchandise. We're in a really awesome time right now where there's just so much to look forward to as far as Star Wars content goes. And with all of that content comes the merchandise. So that's exciting.
You're West Coast, and it looks like you. I'm guessing you must have a season pass to Disney because I see a lot of pictures from Galaxy's Edge.
Yeah.
So tell me about your experiences at Galaxy's Edge. You take a lot of really great pictures in some of the unique fashion items you find, things like that. Maybe tell me about your first experience at Galaxy's Edge. I had the good fortune to be there just it was couple weeks before lockdown, so I got to go. I was in California. We might have been there the same day, but so tell me about what that means to you as a fan to be able to go to Galaxy's Edge on a regular basis, and how do you find new things? I think that's one question that I have. I always imagine, geez, I've been there once, it's great, I want to go back a couple more times, but just people who are out there who experience it fairly regularly. How do you experience a park like that differently every time you go in?
Sometimes I'm going there specifically for a photo shoot, or sometimes I'm going there just to hang out and enjoy the sights and kind of people watch. And I love seeing people kind of take it all in for the first time. That's really exciting. Or sometimes I'm going because there's new products and I want to cover it. There's just so many different reasons, but I just love it so much. It just feels like home to me. Yeah. And you probably experience this too, but like being there, it doesn't feel like you're in a theme park. It feels very authentic. And I feel like there's just always something new to explore or do there.
Yep. No, I think you're right. And that is one of those things that it does create that, it really does have that sort of completely immersive experience. And it's, it catered. That's, I think one of the things, and people are going to call me a Disney shill, but I can live with that. I think what they do a really nice job of is they cater to every audience. I mean, I went there as an adult. My kids were East Coast. I was out there for another reason, but I spent the day there. I was there with another adult, and we were like taken back to like being kids again. But then you also see, little children dressed in their clone trooper costume or something, and they're stopped on the street by Vi or something, and it just they capture something. They've really, I think they've done a really nice job with that, sort of keeping that magic alive in that experience.
Yeah. And another thing that I really like about it is that it brings fans together, whether you're meeting there for the first time or you're connecting with somebody who you've been talking to online for however long. Right. And I've had those experiences, and it's magical.
Yeah, but that's a really interesting point there, is that I imagine somebody who's had a blog for 19 years, who's had a social media presence for a while. It did, I think, and that's actually, I ended up meeting up with somebody who I had met online and become friendly with, and we went there. But that is the perfect place to meet a fellow Star Wars fan. It's really. It's pretty amazing.
It is. I mean, there or Celebration are like the perfect places. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm disappointed that Celebration isn't happening, but I'm glad it's not, in a way, because we wouldn't be able to have it the way it's meant to be. I've never been to a Celebration, believe it or not. I've been a fan for my whole life, but
wow.
Yeah, we actually had tickets. It's actually taking place over the weekend of my daughter's birthday. We were going to go and blah blah blah, have a great time, and of course, for hey, it's all for it. It got to a point I think where I was just happy, kind of, that they made a decision, right? Because I didn't think it would actually be able to be everything we wanted it to be.
Right.
So, what's your favorite part of Galaxy's Edge? What's something you never miss when you walk in?
I think almost every time I go, I get a blue milk and I go into Doc Honors because I'm all about those lightsabers.
Yeah.
And I like seeing, I feel like you always have to keep a watchful eye for the new stock. So,
yeah. How often do you get there? Well, I mean, when we're not unique situations,
there was a period where I was going like once a week.
That's awesome.
Yeah. But yeah, when it's open again and it's safe to go, I think it would be really nice to just sit down and kind of write there, which is something that I'm kind of shocked I never did, but I imagine a lot of inspiration could be drawn from the atmosphere and what's happening in my writing. So
yes, I think one of the things that's most amazing to me, and I've heard other people talk about, I think Clayton Sandell was telling me about this as well, is when you're there and the sound effects you hear, if the spaceship sound effects, for those of you who haven't been there, when you go, there's all kinds of Star Wars sound effects.
Oh my gosh.
And you will hear a spaceship, one of the ships taking off, and you literally look around like, where is this X-wing coming in and what's landing? And you're so immersed in everything happening there. It's great.
Yeah.
So you go there for the merchandise, which I loved. I thought it was great, and it's a lot of exclusive stuff is there.
Yes.
So tell me a little bit about your collection. How big is your collection, and which direction do you tend to go? I mean, like I said, I see a lot of really unique fashion items and jewelry and things like that, but also it looks like you also have some traditional collectibles in there as well.
Yes. So I do the Funko Pops, lightsabers, a lot of the art and visual dictionary books I absolutely love, a lot of pins, plushies, kind of a little bit of everything. Yeah. I did my Black Series figure collection was around 1 to 3 figures for a while, but I feel like this year it at least doubled. I try to just, the way I collect, I try to just choose the things that I love most. Like I don't need a full collection of one particular item,
right?
Which that kind of helps me like determine what I'm going to buy.
Right. Yeah, it's so, it used to be, and I'm going to sound like the old guy here, but it's true. When I was doing the work for Star Wars Galaxy magazine, and I was working with Steve Sansweet, and there used to be a finite amount of things, right? It was you could hunt and you could find things, and it was always a surprise to find something somewhere. But now, like literally, you walk into a Walgreens to go pick up your allergy medicine, and there's a new pop sitting there on the shelf, or so it's almost. Your approach to collecting sounds like it's the right way to go, because otherwise you could be a Black Series completist, and just that would be a very expensive hobby for one, and number two, it would be very hard to do. I tend to do the same thing. Like if I see it and I like it, I get it. And I think that's a way to go. There's also it's there's just, like I was saying, there's just so many different things you can collect.
Definitely.
It must be hard to keep up with. So, so tell me, you were mentioning before, we were talking a little bit about the things to look forward to. Which content that we know for sure, or that at least is rumored, that's coming out, what kind of stuff are you most excited about to see in the Star Wars universe?
My top one right now is probably the Kenobi series. I wasn't there for that announcement. Where was that? I believe Celebration, right?
I think it was D23, actually. That? I think it was D23.
Oh, you're right. Yes. Yeah. And I had it on and I just started crying because it was something that I really wanted to see. I love Ewan McGregor as Obi-Wan. And when it was recently rumored that Hayden would be in it, I cried all over again because their relationship and their chemistry together, oh, so good. And I hope that we get that.
I think after Clone Wars, after 7 seasons of Clone Wars, to be able to see the two of them together again would just be, that would be really, really a pleasure to see. So it would be great. Do you want to talk about your theory real quick? I thought that was really interesting about the role that Anakin could play in Kenobi.
So my theory is that we could see Darth Vader in Kenobi, and I just started thinking about all the other times that we've seen Force connections with Darth Vader and the people who are closest to him in his life. In Return of the Jedi, we see Darth Vader and Luke have a Force connection, and in the Clone Wars season 7, we saw Anakin and Ahsoka have a Force connection. They both kind of knew that, they were near each other.
Right.
And Rebels, that's when we see Vader and Ahsoka connect.
Yep.
And that's when Ahsoka realizes who he is. And so we've kind of just have this pattern going on. And I was like, why not continue that pattern and have a really interesting and emotional Force connection with Vader and Obi-Wan? Maybe not emotional on their part, but emotional on our part because of the depth, of their relationship. And I just think that would be really interesting. And we know that Hayden has worn the suit before.
Yes.
And it wouldn't interfere with anything that is said in A New Hope, in my opinion.
That was a good point that you made, I think, in your blog post there, was because I think that's one of the challenges I've had with, when I've heard that Anakin or Hayden is coming back, and obviously it would be as Anakin is, I think, and honestly, it's funny because the Kenobi series, this is another interesting thing about what we've seen in the Disney era of Star Wars is everything we've heard that's coming out, other than the sequel trilogy, have been things that my initial reaction has been, and I hate to sound like just a cranky fan because I'm really very positive most of the time, but I was like Rogue One, I was like, I mean, that sounds good, and Solo was like, and they turned out to be things that I absolutely love and I wouldn't give up at all. Mandalorian, I always thought was a cool idea, but I had no idea what we were going to get with it. And the Kenobi series, my first response was, well, we kind of know what happened, right? We know he sat in the desert and watched Luke, but as we start to hear about these concepts and reading your concept and thinking, it's encouraging, and it makes me want to see what happened in that time period. And if you can make those connections, because where I was going with this was, I always sort of naturally believe that, when he sees him, that was the first time since Mustafar. But that doesn't necessarily have to be that way, right? There could be, or I think, even I started watching Rebels again with my son, and I forgot how it opens with Vader, sort of putting out the call to the Inquisitors to go and find the last of the Jedi. So maybe he's hunting Obi-Wan, and that was cool, right?
So cool. Yeah, I mean, because and I think I also got into a little bit of that on my post. The Emperor told Vader to hunt and kill all the Jedi.
Right.
And Vader is very persistent, and we know he's not going to forget Obi-Wan. He knows he's out there.
Right.
So I think if we knew that Obi-Wan was being hunted, that would create kind of like a little bit of a suspense. It would be really cool.
Yeah. And it would also make kind of a cool connection to, going back to Tatooine and just, I think I'm sold now on let's bring Anakin back, if for no other reason, as you said, just to have Hayden back in the picture. It's that's one of the great things, and one of my 10 questions is about sort of your favorite trilogy, but the prequels. Let me talk about that, because that's what inspired you, I think, to start your blog, at least that time frame. How did you respond to the prequels as somebody who watched the originals first? How did you respond to the prequels? And the reason I ask is because it relates there in that, to me, I was a fan of the prequels, but I always, I was cranky old guy even 20 years ago. But I loved where it was going. But I was always, I'm proud to say much. I think Ken Knapsack is the one who says he's a reformed prequelist, and I'm the same. And now I love. In fact, just the other day, I was just flipping through Disney Plus, and I was like, I'm going to put on Revenge of the Sith, and I've come to love Phantom Menace. But I'd love to get your reaction, because those movies were something that were probably played a pretty important part in your fandom.
Yes, I absolutely loved them then, and I still love them now. And I know they get a bad rap sometime, but I've seen fans come around like you, and I think that's really cool. And I think it will always be that way with Star Wars. I think all the complaints that we still see about The Last Jedi, and even now The Rise of Skywalker, I think we'll see people come around.
Yeah. So do you, speaking of the sequel trilogies, and I hate to, there's no way to ask this question without walking an interesting line. So being a woman fan of Star Wars, and part of your question, part of your point, even, being sort of pushed in one direction because of which trilogies you come in. How do you find the state of being a female fan for Star Wars? Because I'm so excited and so happy to see that Star Wars really truly is now, from a fan perspective, and it wasn't always this way. I mean, 25, 30, 40 years ago, Star Wars was the boys thing, right? And it was also a different time, right? I mean, there was these movies are for boys, these movies are for girls. And now my daughter, like I said, her favorite movies are the sequel trilogy movies. The Funko Pops that she has are Jannah and Rose and Rey, and those are her favorite characters. And she also has Poe and Finn, and so. But how has the journey as a female fan evolved for you in 20 years in the Star Wars space?
I think it's been very exciting. It wasn't something that I really thought of when I saw A New Hope, that there was only really one prominent female character. But once they started incorporating more of those female roles, and even female lead roles, it just felt so good. And it was nice to have different kinds of connections to those characters, especially people that you could relate to. Right. And so that's exciting. I'm really glad that we have a much better ratio now between the male and female characters. I think it's very nice.
And as a fan online, how do you deal with because it feels like there's it's just easier to be ugly online, right? And so do you run into any of that, and if so, how do you deal with that?
Once in a while I do, and most of the time I just ignore it. Yeah. Because that's probably the best thing to do. Yeah. And I feel like the more you ignore it too, the less likely you are to have other people come into the conversation and jump in, and then it just attracts more of those kinds of people to your space. Yeah. Because I try to keep my space very welcoming and positive, and so for the most part, I think that's what I try to do.
That's great. Yeah. And it's not easy to do, because and I really respect that, because you go to the Star Wars social media world to share your experience with people, and then the door is left open for some of the people you wouldn't want to share that experience with. And so to have the strength and willpower to ignore that is pretty impressive.
Oh, thanks. I try.
So, what are some of tell me about when you hear the phrase Star Wars, what kind of memories, what are some of your favorite Star Wars moments for you as a fan?
So the very first one that I thought of when you said that was in 2015 at Star Wars Celebration Anaheim. I wasn't fully convinced just yet that we needed more Star Wars stories. Believe it or not, when Disney, when the announcement was made that Disney bought Lucasfilm, I wasn't really for the idea, because I thought it was perfect and that it didn't need to be touched at all. And of course I was excited to be at Star Wars Celebration. It was my first one. But when they showed the trailer for The Force Awakens, I was just like, wow, this is we needed this. I needed this, because there wasn't really anything going on at the time to be excited about. And it was also hard for me as a blogger to create content and, just to be excited with other fans when there was nothing really happening.
Right.
And it was just such an incredible moment to watch that. I remember I was like crying and laughing at the same time. Crazy emotions.
That's great. And so tell me about your response to the sequel trilogy. How did it's an interesting thought to somebody who's such a big fan like you are, and to have that inkling for a while that maybe we don't really need this. How have you responded? Obviously, you're a fan, but what changed your mind? The trailer and then the films, and yes. Where do you stand now that all three have come out? How do you feel about it?
I feel really good. We 100% needed this, I think, or I needed it as a fan. I can't imagine the Star Wars story without it, because not only did we get to continue the stories of some of our favorite characters, but we got to meet new and incredible characters. Yeah. And I love these movies. I mean, The Force Awakens is one of my all-time favorite Star Wars movies now.
Yeah, it's funny to me how The Force Awakens has absolutely it's pushed its way into probably the top 3 or 4 for me, and it's
nice.
It's my I love them, and you start to love Star Wars for different reasons, or different parts of Star Wars. There's enough Star Wars to love different parts for different reasons, and the sequels I love because I love that they continued the story, right? I mean, as you might imagine, being a 7-year-old boy when I saw Star Wars in the theaters and hearing that this George Lucas guy had this vision for 9 movies and we stopped at 6. I never thought we would see these. And so when I heard 7, 8, and 9 were coming out, I was really excited, but I experienced them with my children, which was really a phenomenal way to go about it. And so it's a different time there as well. So and how do you feel about the Baby Yoda craze?
I love Baby Yoda. I think he definitely stole the spotlight in that show, but oh my gosh, how awesome was it that we had no idea about him?
Absolutely.
Right. I love that.
How did you respond? Like, where were you when you saw that episode and he peeks over the little brown blanket? Where were you and how did you respond?
My husband and I were watching it and we were kind of just like, just still. I'm watching and I'm like, oh my gosh, it's like a baby of some kind. And you just see the little hand and then he touches the hand and I was just like, oh, and then it ends and you have to wait a week.
Yeah.
I mean, I do like that you had to wait a week because it just reminds me of how it used to be watching TV shows, and it creates more of something to look forward to, which is really awesome. But I love Baby Yoda so much.
Yeah. Did you have any theories while you were watching the show of what that bounty was going to be? Did you like?
Not at all.
Not at all. Okay.
I didn't expect it to be a living creature. That's for sure.
Yeah, that's I've said it before. I thought for sure he was going to find Boba Fett. I thought they were going to make that connection to the original series, and then that was going to be how they were going to do it. But the fact that in a world of leaks, right? I mean, you can't go on Twitter and not. I mean, there's so much stuff that we now supposedly, and we don't know for sure what we really do know about season 2, but there's so much out there. I'm assuming. I just noticed that you have the Ahsoka Tano ring on your finger.
Yes,
you're a and you're definitely a her universe supporter. I'd love that stuff. How do you feel about the possibility of seeing Ahsoka on Mandalorian? How does that strike you?
I'm not really sure. She's one of my favorite characters. So to see her would be really amazing. But I don't know. It goes back to the whole thing about this show is called The Mandalorian. So I think the focus should be on him. And I love like Easter eggs like that. And I personally love, watching Star Wars and being like, oh, look, it's that guy. Or oh, look, that was in that movie. Like, I think that's exciting.
Yeah.
I just, and it's also an Ashley Eckstein thing because Ashley is Ahsoka.
Yeah.
And to see somebody else play her, that's a tough one. I'm just kind of in the middle. I don't know.
Yeah. She's become such an important Star Wars character. Her and Maul, right? These two sort of never a throwaway character, but characters who never got the attention they deserved. And I've said this before, and I'm not ashamed to say it. When I first saw the Clone Wars movie, I was like, oh, the Snips and Sky Guy thing, it's not playing with me. And by the time we got halfway through Clone Wars, and by the time it ended, I am a 100% Ahsoka Stano. I'm like I think she's one of the most important and most vibrant characters in the Star Wars universe. And like you, I can't imagine it without Ashley's voice. I can't imagine it without the look that she's drawn in. And so
Yeah.
I'm excited to see how it happens. Much like, the fact that Filoni was able to bring in Mandalorians from his animated vision and do a good job with it, right? When they first showed up was it episode 3, when they show up and they're like flying on the jetpacks, and it's like, oh my goodness, they brought them to life. Like it's real. So I'm apprehensive. I'm cautiously optimistic, like you. I think it's like I want to see it, but I'm kind of like, how are they going to do this? So.
Yeah, and at the same time, I think of how like when Solo was announced, and then they announced Alden as Han Solo, and I was like, what? Like nobody else can be Han Solo, and then I ended up loving the movie and loving that character, and I feel like he really studied like all of Harrison Ford's mannerisms, and he really embodied that character. So it's just really tough when, it's a character that you love. Yeah.
Well, and I think you bring up an interesting point with Alden, and that's probably a good corollary, because like Alden I think he was careful not to do a Harrison Ford impression, right? That would have been jarring, right? Like there's that, I can't remember the actor's name, but he like does a perfect Harrison Ford impression, but the whole time, if somebody does an impression, you start looking for specific things. But Alden did, like, he'd get a smile or a smirk or a gesture right, without trying to do Harrison Ford. And I think the same thing can be said for Donald Glover, who I think captured the essence of what I think we all think Lando was like when he was young.
Yeah.
So
definitely.
And what are your thoughts on the whole make Solo 2 happen sort of trend? How do you come down?
I definitely want to see the story continued. Yeah. I would love to see Han meet Jabba. I want to see Maul and Kira. There's a lot to explore there. So whether it's a movie or a TV show, I'm all for it. Yeah. I think that's this. You were saying it before. This is such an exciting time to be a Star Wars fan. What is it they say? Like, the Earth has been around for 40, 100 billion years, and we happen to be alive during this amazing Star Wars time. It's really, like I'm jealous of my kids because they have no idea how good they have it right now. With all the Star Wars content. It's nonstop. And I feel like there's never been more rumors than there is this year. It's kind of crazy right now. Well, so as somebody who you work with, as sometimes you're a representative in some way, right? Do you have like paid links sometimes and things like that? How do you respond to seeing the way information is getting out? I find it very strange that it's either not tied down more or it's almost intentional. How do you read the way things are coming out these days? It is very odd. You would think that they would kind of have a hold on that by now. And that they can because of the whole Baby Yoda thing. Correct. Yep. So why? Is some of it to see how fans react? Do they have like a bunch of ideas and they kind of just want to like let them leak and see what fans are the most excited about and then go with that idea? I don't know. I would rather things not leak. I tried to not get excited, but obviously I got very excited about the Kenobi rumor that I wrote a post about it. Because I try not, when I see that rumors have leaked, I try not to report on them. Because I also know how people are. A lot of people take rumors as official announcements, and it drives me crazy. Well, it drives me crazy. Star Wars, it seems more than any other movie franchise. The Marvel universe has been
wildly successful, but I don't, and maybe it's because I'm not a big, it's not that I don't love the Marvel movies. I really enjoy them, but I'm not like obsessed, of course, like I am. I mean, I don't have a Marvel podcast, but like you never really hear a lot of things coming from there. But Star Wars, you hear everything. You hear casting rumors. You hear every sort of piece of dirty laundry that's coming out of every production, and I think I don't know why this franchise more than any other. So it's a strange spot. But in a way, I wonder if that's part of the marketing plan, or I like your thought. Maybe they're floating ideas and just seeing what the response is, because Star Wars has never done a test screening for anything. They've never done, they don't go back and make a change because of a test screening. So maybe that's the way they do it.
Yeah. I also know there's people who just make them up, and then it gets passed from one person to another, and it holds no weight at all, basically.
Yeah, well, and that also goes to this thing we talked about before with some of the negativity, and I think people create rumors to perpetuate their negative hopes for the franchise or the things that match their narrative, and so you're right. So you don't know, do you believe the Donald Glover thing or not? Do you believe one thing or the other? And it gets confusing and it gets frustrating. And then, to your point, people take it as gospel and then become disappointed because something doesn't happen.
Yeah. And it happens time and time and again.
Yeah.
Like, rumors are rumors. That's right. All they are.
Got to remember that until there's an official announcement or you see it on screen, right? Because even things that, you can see things in a trailer that don't even end up in the movie. So
yeah, I know.
So, all right. So we do this thing on the show where we do this 10 questions at the end of every show, and there's no wrong answers, and you can expand on an answer or just give one, whatever you prefer. And we've done these 75 times before. So,
wow.
So let's see how this goes. I'm really interested to hear your answers. So the first question on the list is, what's your favorite Star Wars movie, TV show, or book? Some people do all three. Some people just pick one. I will leave it up to you.
Oh, wow. Okay. I might try each category.
All right.
For a movie, I can never just pick one. I just can't. Right now, I feel like it's The Force Awakens, The Rise of Skywalker, and then Empire Strikes Back.
Excellent.
Yeah. For TV show, it's definitely The Clone Wars. I just love all the new stories that we got from that series, and that we got a season 7. Yes. How good was that ending?
It was, it's funny because when Clone Wars first came out, I think it was like was it a Cartoon Network or something, or Disney, or no, it wasn't Disney. It was Cartoon Network, right? And then whatever.
I think so, yeah.
Wherever it was hard for me to find, and it was on it. So I was not really into it till I hit Netflix, and then and I like I said, my son really enjoyed it, and so I got into it, and then. What I started doing when we heard 7 was coming out was I started watching different arcs again. And just when you watch the 3 to 4 episode arcs, you realize just how brilliant the entire series is. And that ending couldn't have been better.
Oh, I know. So, yeah. I love all the artwork that we're seeing of it now.
Yeah.
It's really cool.
Genius.
He is. Book. Oh, I'm not that much of a reader. I remember I really loved the Attack of the Clones novel, and I'm currently going through the Rise of Skywalker novel, which I'm really enjoying right now. I just like being able to read about like what characters are thinking in certain scenes and seeing like extended versions of scenes. Like I really enjoy that.
Cool. That's great. So the second question is, unfortunately, it's the other side. What's your least favorite Star Wars movie? And I always tell people that like I think it was Jason Fry who said that with the movie he picked was there were 10 Star Wars movies at the time. He said it was his 10th favorite. So they're all your favorite. We're giving you that pass. But which one is the bottom of the list? Yeah,
definitely. And you probably know this, but like I find joy in like all of Star Wars.
Yes.
Even the movies that are on the bottom of my list, I still enjoy them. I would on the bottom, it would probably have to be either The Last Jedi or Rogue One.
Mm-hmm.
And TV show and book, I'm not really sure on those ones.
Did you watch Resistance, and have you watched all the shows that have come through? Yeah, I imagine you have.
Yes. I do need to finish season 2 of Resistance because I got that like way later than everyone else. But I do enjoy that.
Yeah, it's a different style, and it's it's funny. One of the things about Star Wars that I find so interesting, and I think Resistance illustrated this as well, is that there are things that if you put it in any other story, whether it's a look for a character or a concept of how some sort of technology works, it wouldn't work. But in Star Wars, it works. You know, the silly little orange guy with the broom, like that feels very Star Wars, right?
Yeah.
And so Resistance did do a really nice job with that, and
definitely.
So, cool. So we won't dwell on the least favorite. We'll move on to the next one. So would you consider yourself an Imperial or a Rebel?
An Imperial, definitely.
Oh, really? Well, you do. There is that. You have something, a photo on your site where you're wearing it's like a sweater with like a Imperial insignia.
Yes, it's my Rogue Jedi look.
Yes.
Yes.
It's very cool. But so you consider yourself much more Imperial than?
Oh yeah, I'm definitely more of a dark side girl.
Interesting. So you must have been pretty excited when you saw Dark Side Rey in the trailer.
Oh my gosh. I think I hurt the ears of the people in front of me because I screamed so hard. I did not expect to see that. I wish we got to see more of it.
I do too. I do too. But I thought it was cool that they went there at all, which was great.
Yeah.
I have this feeling that like Daisy loved that. Like that was a fun day on the set for her. I don't know. I just feel like that was probably a pretty cool experience.
Yeah, I would imagine so.
All right. So your next question is, what's your favorite Star Wars sound effect?
Probably the sound of a lightsaber being ignited or a TIE fighter.
Excellent. Yeah, those are two sounds that are just so... I think I said it before about a TIE fighter. Somebody said that. And it's a sound that if you didn't see it with like if you were totally ignorant of everything in Star Wars and you just heard that sound, you'd have no idea what it is. But now that you know what it is, it's just the perfect sound to go with.
It is. Yeah. Both are so iconic.
I remember when I was a kid, one of my best friends growing up, he used to we all used to be like, Andy, do the TIE fighter sound, and he used to be able to do it with his mouth, and I wouldn't even embarrass myself to try, but it was, I don't even know if it was good or not, but for us it was awesome. So, but
that's cool.
Okay, who's your favorite droid out of these three? R2, 3PO, or BB-8?
BB-8, definitely.
Yeah,
I like just rounded things. It makes them more cute.
I think one of my favorite things about BB-8 is just how they use that one eye to portray so much emotion, right? They're so great. All right, so the next question is, which spaceship or vehicle from the Star Wars universe would you most like to own?
The Millennium Falcon, or again, a TIE Fighter.
TIE Fighter for the
I really love TIE Fighters.
What is it about TIE Fighters that you love?
I love their designs and how there's so many different variations of them. Their sounds, obviously, it's just so powerful, and they're really fast. I imagine it would be really hard to pilot one.
Yeah.
But yeah, they're really cool.
Yeah, well, and as you just said, it's round, right?
It is. Yeah, I'm drawn to those kind of characters and just objects that are round.
That's cool. You know what I find you've seen the original models, and you look at how they evolved from the original TIE Fighter and the original X-Wing looked really not great, and they turned them into these things that are now just so amazing, and just so they look so real, like they could actually exist. And what is I just remember, what is that character's name in The Mandalorian?
he shows up in the TIE fighter. I'm blanking on his name.
Moff Gideon.
And the wings kind of fold down.
Yes.
Moff Gideon,
Moff
yes.
Gideon, yes.
Oh, that moment was so incredible. I had no idea that they could fold down like that.
Yeah. No, I think that was actually
it was so cool.
I think it was a concept that they created for Force Awakens that they never used, and so they brought that to life. And I'm such a nerd, I know this stuff, but but the other thing is, you mentioned Moff Gideon. Giancarlo Esposito, in the short period of time we saw him on screen, is just he feels like the worst bad guy in the world. He just did such a great job of oozing just imperial evil. It was so great. How did you respond to seeing the dark saber?
Oh, that was really cool. I'm excited to see how that plays a part in this story.
Yeah. That the Baby Yoda thing to the casual fan was a shock. It was a shock to everybody. The darksaber to people who have invested in Clone Wars and Rebels, that was like, what? That was
yeah.
I remember I was I had to watch it on my phone. I wasn't able to watch it on my TV, and I'm sitting there and I'm looking at it, and I was like, I'm like, what? Is that? And I had to go and look at it again. It was great. But that's
awesome.
Yes, the folding wings on that TIE fighter. I want to see more of that. I need to see more of that.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, of these three, who's your favorite? A Porg, an Ewok, or Jar Jar Binks?
Definitely Porg.
Yeah. Are you a Porg collector?
I am, actually. Now that you mention it, I do. Yeah, you know what? I have specific character collections. Now that you say that, Jabba, Baby Yoda, Porgs, Ahsoka. Actually, there's a lot of them. I just collect a lot of Star Wars things.
You might be the first person I've ever heard say they have a Jabba collection. What kind of Jabba stuff do you have?
Oh my gosh. I have a variation of plushies, some figures. I don't know. I'll have to take a picture one of these days and post it.
Jabba collection. That's great.
Yeah.
Okay, so if you could be any character in Star Wars, who would it be and why? Why that character?
Ooh, that's a really good one. I would probably be Ahsoka Tano because I really admire her values, and I just feel like she always does her best to try to do the right thing, and she helps others, and she's just really cool too.
Yeah.
I mean, I like how that she gets to have different lightsabers throughout her stories, and she's just really cool overall. It
took me until season 7 to recognize that the two lightsaber hilts are different sizes. I didn't even catch that, which I thought was pretty cool.
Oh yeah.
But so I'm glad to hear you say that about Ahsoka, because one of the things, and I'd love your opinion on it, about season 7. There's a lot of people who were not a fan of the Martez sisters arc, but to me, that was a really important piece of the story. What did you take from that, and how did you respond to that part of the series?
So I liked how it opened Ahsoka's eyes to certain things and kind of helped her grow a little bit. But I personally don't think it needed to be 4 episodes. I think it could have been condensed into like 2 episodes.
That's very fair. I could see that. I remember I was having conversations. I do a show on Friday nights, which we call Streaming Star Wars, and we just talk about whatever's happening in Disney Plus. And there was a lot of people who just they called it filler episodes and things, and I never felt they were filler. I do agree. I think they could have done it in two episodes. Yeah. But I thought it was so important from a storytelling standpoint, and as a fan of Ahsoka, and now an even bigger fan of Ahsoka than I was before, to see it exposed her to different things, and more importantly, it showed how she responded, and you realized that she really was the good person that she is, and faced with adversity, she followed through with it. So cool. Okay, so the 9th question is, what's your favorite trilogy, the originals, the prequels, or the sequels?
I can't pick. Oh my gosh. Oh, I don't think I could pick.
Yeah.
It's really hard because they all have like different meanings for me too.
Yeah.
I mean, I did say 2 of my favorites were from the sequel trilogy, so maybe right now it's a little bit more of the sequel trilogy,
so mathematically,
which makes sense because we just finished it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Oh, that's great. Yeah, and it's they're in hindsight they have 3 very different feels. They're definitely, you feel the connection, but they have different, like each movie has each trilogy has its own tone. So that's fair. It is hard.
Very much.
It's funny.
It's so hard.
I do these shows every week with Star Wars fans, and I ask them to. It's like asking parents to pick their favorite children. It's just not right, is it? I should.
Yeah, I'm really bad at favorites. My husband always laughs at me because he's like, "Favorite means one. You can only pick one," but I always pick multiple.
That was a decision I had to make when I started the show. I was like, "Am I going to really be strict with people and be like, you can only?"
Oh yeah. Oh man.
I can't. They're called guests for a reason, right? So, okay. So the final question is a favorite question for you. What is your favorite Star Wars quote?
It would probably have to be, "I find your lack of faith disturbing."
Excellent. Now, is it because it's a philosophy thing, or you just love the way it's delivered, or what is it about that line that you love?
It's okay. Well, Darth Vader and Ahsoka are like my favorite characters, but so it comes from Darth Vader, but also, as much of a dark side girl I am, I think that quote kind of is just a good reminder of things, even though it's kind of like in that moment it's a bit of a threat. I find your lack of faith disturbing. There's a lot of messages of like hope and having faith in Star Wars, and that's something that I believe in as just an individual person, not just being a Star Wars fan. So
that I've said this before on the show, and it's true every time I say it. When people pick a quote, right, there's like 2 or 3 different types of quotes. People will, some people will pick sort of a do or do not, there is no try, because it's what the first thing they think of. Some people will pick something really kind of silly because it's what they're, but there's times where a quote like that, nobody's picked that one of the first 76 shows. But what I love is that perspective that you just brought to that line. And what I love about doing the show is somebody will say what you just said and will change a line for me forever. I never thought about it as a part of that hope, right? I find you like that's kind of what Anakin is, right? He's always got that. He's a dark, or when he became Vader, he became very dark, but he still has that faith in whatever that is, what the Force is. That's wow. You changed that scene. That's fantastic. That's so great.
Yeah, it's kind of always been my favorite, I think. So.
Wow, that's really great. I love that. That's very good.
Oh, thank you.
Well, so thank you so much for spending some time with us today. This was really a lot of fun. Tell people once again where they can find you online and keep up with you.
Yeah, thank you so much. My blog is at anakinandhisangel.com. My username is Anakin and His Angel on all social media platforms except for Twitter, where I'm at Across the Stars.
Excellent. Well, Jen, thank you so much. Next time I get out to Galaxy's Edge in California, we'll have to have a blue milk together. That would be fantastic. Cool. Well, great. This was great to meet you, and thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much.
For over 40 years, Star Wars has been a part of our culture, a part of our lives, and a part of who we are. Now there's one place with something for every type of Star Wars fan, the Beyond the Blast Doors Network. From the latest in Star Wars news,
a great day, an exciting day here on the YouTube channel,
to collectibles.
Oh, I'm jealous.
Yeah, what do you
beautiful.
How much you want for it?
Interviews with creators.
If you want your book to feel necessary, it has to deliver some insight or some piece of information that you didn't get anywhere else.
Famous fans.
Yeah. And it's like all there's a yeah. That's great.
Fan documentaries.
This moment, like the Force awakened in Rey, but it also awakened something in me.
And great conversation with casual and hardcore fans alike.
I've seen a lot of things end up on the cutting room floor that I'm like, oh.
The Beyond the Blast Doors Network was made for you. New content nearly every day of the week on video and podcast. There's something for every fan. Visit BeyondTheBlastDoors.com and on YouTube search Beyond the Blast Doors.